My name is Jeanette Fracchia, Adam, Logan, Byland, and born and raised in Coyote Valley, and I lived there. I started there in 1928, and I think we left there in the latter part of 1940. I spent my school years at the country schoolhouse, and when we no longer had a teacher, I was bused into Ukiah to the grammar school, which is now a police department. Folks had a very large garden. I know they had a row of artichokes that was at least 20 feet long, and asparagus, which was a permanent planting. It would last for 20, 30 years. And then they had another big garden down by the river, and they would have a little water pump that they would pump some water out of the river to irrigate with. But we would grow everything and can everything. I mean, you would can beans, and that's one thing. We didn't have pressure cookers then, and Mom used to can the beans in a big copper boiler on the wood stove and pack the jars in straw and cook for a long time. You had to be very careful with beans because my mother, not my mother, but my neighbor's mother died because she ate some spoiled beans. So but we canned all kinds of fruit. She made all kinds of jams and preserves, all kinds of pickles. So we had food all winter long. Oh, and she even canned meat, but like I said, she cooked in this big copper boiler about so big and so wide, was packed with her jars. We were pretty industrious that way, and as you read those booklets that you're borrowing, you will find that there's quite a history in there of how we survived, because we used to raise chickens and sell them to the restaurants in town, and pigeons, the Chinese stores like the pigeons, like the squabs. Squab is a very delicate, it's a very delightful meat. People have never even heard of squabs, and this is the baby birds before they put the pin feathers. The pin feathers are awfully hard to get out, so you catch the birds before they have any feathers, or they're just basically bare. They just kind of like a hairy coating on them. But I don't know, it was wonderful living out there. We never felt deprived in any way. We knew that we were WAPs, but that was okay. Everybody else was. When we went to school, when we got older, we had to transfer to school because we didn't have school teachers coming out rural. So I think it was 5th and 6th grade I went into town, and starting the 7th and 8th. But our bus driver lives on what's now the Buffalo Ranch. His name was Dot, and he used to take the bus home, and then he'd go further up toward Lake County, pick up kids, and then come back and pick us all up as we go to town. The vineyard was all bare ground when my dad and Mom bought that property. It was full of brush, so that had to be brushed out. He had a great big old tractor that had those big metal wheels with the teeth on it, and they just pulled everything out and then cultivated it. And they got the starts, I think, of the grapevines either through Parducci or through Alsace Colony Winery, because my dad had the history of working there. And it was planted, and it took 6, 7 years before you get a crop. So meanwhile, you found other ways to make money to survive. You had to be industrious. That's why we raised chickens and pigeons and rabbits. The vineyards were, we have to go out and sucker them every year, which was the extra stems that come off the grapevines. You wanted most of the strength to go into the stems that you decided to keep for wine, because usually the suckers did not have grapes. Sometimes they did, but you still didn't want to keep them. You wanted to keep them to the original. Then you'd have to go out and tie them down sometimes, because the wind would break the branches off when they were tender. We had to weed them, and we worked all the fruit areas around that area. We used to hand pick in boxes with a grapevine, with a grape knife. The grape knife had a circular curve to it, so it was very easy, and a wooden handle. And you just kind of pull your box under the vine and start picking. And then you'd have to haul or drag the boxes out to the end, and you were given a number, and you put a number on your box, and when they picked up the boxes, that was recorded, and that was on your record, and you got so much for every box that you picked, which I don't remember how much it was. But everybody picked grapes. You know, there was no age limit. And the whole families would go out with their dogs and pick grapes. So they're all your neighbors, and you know, you just helped your neighbor. Your neighbor needed to have your grapes picked, so okay, ours is done, let's go do so-and-so's. And so you just kind of worked yourself around the area. And then there was pears to be picked. The Hoopers had pears, the Christies had pears.